And we're back. Welcome back to EndZoneBlog.com's Across the Middle show. I'm your host, John Kuzma. We're going to break down the latest NFL news and action, as we always do. And how about the Vikings? You know, Jim Harbaugh was ready to leave Michigan. He was ready to take the Vikings job. He interviewed for the Vikings job twice. We're all led to believe that Harbaugh is going to be the next Vikings coach. And what happens? Harbaugh decides out of nowhere to go back to Michigan. Adam Schefter broke the news. And now we're kind of hearing that it was the Vikings that didn't offer the job to Harbaugh, which is completely insane to me because apparently the Vikings want to go with the Rams offensive coordinator, Kevin O'Connell. They think he'll be another Zach Taylor, like Zach Taylor's doing with the Bengals right now. But the fact that the Vikings let Jim Harbaugh slip away is just, what a letdown for the Vikings. If you're a Vikings fan, I mean, that's a big step backwards. You were feeling pretty good. We're getting Harbaugh. Things are looking up. He's going to whip this team into shape. It's going to be, it's at least heading in the right direction if you get a guy like Jim Harbaugh. I mean, he's got a winning record in the NFL, went to a Super Bowl with the 49ers. Would he make the playoffs 3 out of 4 times or something like that? It was a long time ago, but, I mean, he was great with the 49ers. For whatever reason, at the end of his time with the 49ers, he kind of, the two sides kind of burned out, whether it was Jed York and the 49ers front office and the people they have there were kind of burnt out with Jim Harbaugh, but he goes to Michigan. He's made that program better. They just had a really good year at Michigan. We're in the Final Four. They went to the college football playoffs. Didn't go their way against Georgia, but Harbaugh can coach. We all know that. He's a good coach. He would have been great for the Vikings. And with Aaron Rodgers almost, 1 foot out the door in Green Bay, if you get Jim Harbaugh right now, the Vikings could have took over the NFC North. But they decide, we're going to go with, Sean McVay's latest protege, I guess you can say, because Sean McVay is an offensive mastermind. I think the people in Minnesota probably think they can control Kevin O'Connell more than they can control Jim Harbaugh. But it's your job as a front office to get the best candidate. That's what you do. You get the best candidate and someone that can lead your team into the future and kind of transcend the organization. Just banking on the fact that Kevin O'Connell is going to be another Zach Taylor or another Sean McVay or like a Matt LaFleur or a Kyle Shanahan, one of those guys cut from the same cloth. I mean, at what point does the well run dry? Talent, you can't always just manufacture talent. It doesn't work that way. Some people have gifts. Maybe they all came up together. They all learned together, which is what happened with Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur. Those guys were all on the Washington Redskins under Mike Shanahan, on Mike Shanahan's staff. And who'd they learn from? They learned from Mike Shanahan, a 2-time Super Bowl winning coach with the Denver Broncos. So, to be mentored by Mike Shanahan made all those guys better. Not only that, they were all collaborating together, which made all of them better. And, I know Zach Taylor hit, but up until Joe Burrow arrived in Cincinnati, Zach Taylor was on the hot seat. I mean, it wasn't looking good until Joe Burrow got there. That's a fact. It is what it is. So we'll see if O'Connell can be the guy for Minnesota. But I don't know. Like I said, eventually the well's got to run dry. And I get what the Vikings are thinking. They think they can reel this guy in more than they can reel in Jim Harbaugh. Harbaugh clearly has more ego, but Harbaugh is probably, I'd say there's a really good chance Harbaugh is the better coach too. So, like I said, it all goes back to the fact that you hire the best candidate. What else do we got? Let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. I know a lot of people don't like Jimmy Garoppolo, but Tom Brady just retired. It's the end of an era for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They got a Super Bowl, had Brady for a couple years, come up short the second time around, but they got one. The job was done. Brady went down there and got one. Well, now the Bucs are in the market for a quarterback, and they need to get someone. And you don't want to sell the farm for someone like Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, someone like that when you couldn't win with Tom Brady. So if you couldn't win with Tom Brady, you're probably not going to win with Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. So you don't want to sell the farm for one of those guys. Give up all your draft picks when you're already behind the Rams. You're already behind the Cincinnati Bengals. Those two teams have surpassed the Buccaneers because they're still in it. So you don't want to sell the farm and, get a guy that probably won't be able to do more than Brady was able to do. Because this team is already slipping a little bit. We know that. They didn't make it out of the NFC side of the bracket. So they're already slipping a little bit. So if you give away all this draft capital too, and they're naturally going to slip a little bit more because that's just the way things go. They're trending downward right now. And then what happens? They get one of these guys and they lose in the first round. And then you gave up all that draft capital too. Then you're just dead in the water. I think it's time for the Bucs to start thinking long term. And they need to keep as much draft capital as they can. So that's why I would trade for Jimmy Garoppolo if I was the Bucs. And here's why. You're not going to have to sell the farm to get him. You might be able to trade a third and a fifth round pick to get Garoppolo, which still gives you your first and your second round picks to build for the future. Not only that, Garoppolo has 5 playoff wins. He's a proven winner. He's got 5 playoff wins. I think he's better than going with Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask, he's never started a game. Jimmy Garoppolo's shown a lot in the NFL. He almost won a Super Bowl with the 49ers. Kansas City came back in that game. Let's not forget that. So, I think Garoppolo would be a good fit for the Buccaneers. They don't have to give up too much to get him. And for a team that will be measured by what they do in the playoffs, Garoppolo has been pretty good in the playoffs. I mean, he's got 5 playoff wins as a starter. Think about someone like Kirk Cousins or Ryan Tannehill. These guys do really good in the regular season. Kirk Cousins was really good this past year. Two years ago, Ryan Tannehill was really good in the regular season. But they get to the playoffs, and what happens? We all know what happens. They collapse every single time. Would you rather have that, who's going to light it up in the regular season, everybody's going to fall in love with him, and then the playoffs, you know what you're getting. You're getting the collapse. Or would you rather have Jimmy Garoppolo, who is only good? He's only good in the regular season, but he turns it up a notch in the playoffs. And all these 49ers fans are saying, well, Garoppolo isn't good in the playoffs. He can't win the big game. It's like, oh, really? I mean, in Week 18 against the Rams, he took over in that second half and was the reason the 49ers even got into the playoffs. Let's not forget about that. Without Jimmy Garoppolo's big second quarter against the Rams in Week 18, the 49ers don't even go to the playoffs. Then he goes to Dallas, and what's he do? On every third down, he converts. He just kept moving the chains on third down and getting the team out of bad situations. I know he didn't put up the big numbers and a bunch of touchdowns, but he just kept sustaining drives. And then the team actually built off that momentum. That's a fact. It happened. Go back and watch the Dallas game and watch how many third downs Jimmy Garoppolo converted on. He wasn't very good against the Packers, had a bad game against the Packers, and that's when, Mina Kimes and Jeff Garcia got into it. But it's unfair to say this guy folds in the playoffs when he has 5 playoff wins as a starter. He went to a Super Bowl, and the Chiefs were on their heels. The Chiefs had to come back in that game. People forget that. The 49ers looked like they were going to win that Super Bowl. Somehow Patrick Mahomes comes back, pulls off a miracle. But Jimmy Garoppolo was this close to being a Super Bowl champion. He's got 5 playoff wins. He's got a great winning percentage. I'm telling you, for the Bucs, when you don't have to give up that much because he's a surplus for the 49ers, they want to go with Trey Lance. So that means you can get a really good deal for Garoppolo. I think a team like the Bucs has to seriously consider that. That's all I got for today, though. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm John Kuzma. I'm signing off.